Alright chefs, we're going to make our pan-seared chicken breast, our charred cauliflower. We're going to make the braised chicken with our bush tomatoes, and we're going to make a jus as well as some crispy potato. This is all the mise en place I had collected. So just very simple. I mean, we can elaborate later on as we go. We want to make sure we get all the techniques right. Remember, we can get all of our mise en place ready in that first half an hour. So having everything ready, grating our garlic. I know we chopped it the first time we did it, but this is probably a better way of getting flavour in. Our pre-soaked bush tomatoes, we'll add them to our pot. So this will be the first thing that we do. Obviously one of you will be doing the bush tomatoes and the thighs, and the other one will start getting ready on the other mise en place, which is the charred cauliflower and chicken breast, and possibly the breaking down of the chicken. So here I have the bush tomatoes on. I've created a stock there, which is going to be our jus. We'll put that in a back bag for you guys. Here I'm just brimwasing our onion. So going down long ways, not cutting all the way through, then turning it 90 degrees and then chopping it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So this is going to go into the braise as well as our, what's our other thing? Our puree. So I'm just separating into two piles, and then we're going to cook it later. So now it's the breaking down of the chicken. Remember how we laid it out? Starting with the legs, taking it down, just following the sinew. And hopefully you've practiced this a few times now, and you've got a bit more experience in breaking down the chicken. So remember cracking the bone so that joint comes out, then cutting down. Then going to the breast, finding the line in the middle, then just following the meat down, getting as close to the bone as you can. Just following it down, then chopping through the joint, which is the wing. And we'll clean that up later. And the same on the other side. Following the meat bone down, following the meat, then chopping at the joint, taking it all up. So the carcass we'll put to the side and wrap and we'll say that we'll use that for a sauce later on. Remember working clean, guys, and wiping down, cleaning as we go. So now we want to separate the wing from the chicken breast. So cutting down, separating it. We can keep that wing for sauce as well, or we can add it to the dish later on. Now I've just placed it over to the side because we won't need it until later. Just making sure we're working nice and clean. So one person will take the breasts, get that seasoned up, and they could probably start cooking it once they've started the cauliflower puree. And then the legs, we can get them confying straight away. So one person will continue doing this, trimming up the breasts that we did, taking the loin off. And then we want to clean up any sinew. Remember taking that silver skin off, going underneath, not taking off too much meat. Same with the other one. Trimming it up, taking up any excess skin, not too much. Because remember, we want to make that skin nice and crispy, and it will shrivel up in the oven. You can always trim it off later. But we want to make sure we have all that sinew off, because if there's sinew on there, it's going to make it tight and chewy and not very nice to eat. So one of you will get started on that, and the other person will get started on the confit. Remember, cleaning as we go, cleaning our boards, cleaning our equipment, wiping down, nice and clean and tidy, because that is 20% of our mark. So now popping over to our sauces. So I'm starting the braised chicken now. So remember, caramelizing the thighs. We'll keep the skin on and we'll take it off later on. That'll add flavor to our sauce. Here I have my bush tomatoes boiling down, and that stock that we talked about a little bit earlier, which is our jus. We'll make that stock nice. Then you guys can put any of your offcuts into that stock to add flavor, and we'll strain it out later, and that will become our sauce. So any offcuts, so any carrots, any leftover stuff, any onion skins, we will add there. Not potatoes, but any of those aromats as well. We'll add thyme. In this other pot over here, one of you will be starting the cauliflower puree. So I've just added a bit of oil to the pot, letting it heat up. Remember to make sure to watch your thighs as you're cooking. Getting that nice caramelization. Adding my onions to my pot for my cauliflower puree. So one person can focus on one side of the stove and one person can focus on the other side of the stove. And then I will let those onions saute for a little while. Then I'll add my cauliflower. And what's going to happen is that's going to cool down the pan and water's going to come out. It's going to start stewing and then it'll start to caramelize. This pot, I'm just making sure my chicken's not burning or getting a nice caramelization. So I flip them. I believe I lift up the camera soon. Here you go. You can see the chicken. I'm going to add my onions to my braise. Remember, half an onion to my braise, half an onion to my cauliflower puree. Just showing all the spots there. So my tomato, chutney, the sauce, the jus, as well as the cauliflower, and then the braise. I've just deglazed the pot with a little bit of red wine. Now I'm adding the stock. So we'll make a really nice stock to add so that there's lots of flavor in this braise. Then all we have, I added the herbs as well. So just sticking to the flavors that we looked at originally with that naan bread. Equal parts cumin to, I believe it was paprika. And then I deglazed the pot and then I added the stock. See these offcuts? These will go into our jus, our sauce for later. And now I am going to brunoise these carrots. So this is something we can do while stuff is on the stove. And we can brunoise our carrots to go through our braise. Just to add a bit of colour and a bit more flavour. Now I'm going to cut the other half of the carrot into a mirepoix. And I'll add that to our jus. So it has a bit more flavour. And we're using everything and being sustainable. Now, cut it into nice thin planks. Now I'm layering a few up at once. And then I'm julienning the carrot. Then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and slice it down that way. Getting a nice brunoise of carrot. Any leftover or any odd cuts, I will use into my stock pot for my jus. Remember, being sustainable and using everything. Cut the whole carrot or half the carrot. Remember, making piles that you can handle. You don't want to pile it too high. Just make sure life harder at the end of the day. Turning it 90 degrees and then slicing it long ways, getting a nice fine brunoise cut. So yeah, there's a few odd pieces there. I will pick them up and I'll put them into my stock and I will use them later on. Finishing off the carrot. We'll use half the carrot go through our braise. Remember, we can always add to the dish. We can add other things through. I would like to add some sauteed spinach if possible as well. It's just a matter of timing and how fast you guys get at this and working, because we only have an hour. But if we can work fast enough, we could have a nice sauteed spinach on the plate as well. It would add a nice bit of colour and flavour. Now I'm cleaning my board and moving it to the side, making sure everything's nice and tidy. See how the cauliflower puree is starting to stew? It's getting soft. I haven't added any water yet. That's just in the pot with oil and the onions. It's beginning to caramelize. I've added my carrots now to my stock, and that's just going to boil down until it becomes a sauce consistency. That's the cauliflower puree. It kind of looks like it's burning. That's what we want. That's going to add lots of flavor to our puree. Not burnt, but it's a caramelization. Here, I'm about to start the crispy potatoes. So, peeling the potatoes, you could probably do this in your prep. I believe I only use one potato for this. It's more than enough for 2 plates. So same as the carrot, except it's a bit more 3D, taking off all the edges and making it into a nice rectangular prism. That way it's got a nice base, it's easy to handle, and I can do my cuts a lot easier. Here I'm just trimming it up, and I'm going to add that to my cauliflower puree. That way there's a bit more starch, it's a bit more thickened up. And as well, it's sustainable, and we're using everything, we're not just throwing it in the bin. That will go in my cauliflower puree in a moment. And now just long slices like we just did with the carrot, but with potato. It's nice long planks. Piling it up. Potato is a lot easier to cut than carrot, so if you wanted to practice these knife cuts, potatoes works very well. Again, cutting up the offcuts, don't have to use it all. That's going to go straight in my puree. Same as before with the carrot, just making piles, then long slices. A julienne cut. Any offcuts again, just put into your puree and that'll cook down and that will make it a bit more thick and add a bit more flavor, and it's just sustainable. We want to tick all the boxes. So it's all julienne. Just giving it a mix here. Just showing you my mise en place. Always have cut butter ready to go, because butter is flavor that you can add later on. Cauliflower puree, see how I'm adding my potatoes. Now I'm adding the cream. And that's going to cook down now. I'll leave that for the next 10 minutes for the potatoes to cook, and then I will blend it up. Now I'm just steaming my potato julienne until it's soft, and I'm putting it over the top of my sauce. That's just to steam. It's not going to affect anything. It's in a bowl. That takes about 5 minutes, and what happens is they become nice and soft. Here I'm just straining my jus. So that stock that we had that we've added all of our offcuts. See, I've got all my onion skins. That adds a nice color. There's lots of thyme. Nice sauce. Here I'm setting up my pan for my chicken. So this is the pan roasted chicken. As I've taken off my jus, and it's going to be onto the side. I can heat it up later on. Seasoning the skin nicely. I just did it over here. That way you could see it. I'm going to place that in the pan. Nice hot pan. See, I've tilted the pan. That way it gets all of the skin. Sometimes you might find when you put chicken or something in a pan, there'll be a big bit in the middle that it misses. Doing this will allow the oil to get into all the spots and crisp up evenly. Because there's nothing better than a crispy chicken skin. See how it's cooking now? It's frying. This is what we call shallow frying in the methods of cookery. And that will crisp up. So that's going to be at 180 degrees. So it's going to be very hot. It should cook perfectly. I'm just holding it in that one spot for as long as I can. I'm not mucking about. If you start moving it around too early, what can happen is the chicken skins can stick. I am using a non-stick pan here, which is a lot easier. So maybe we could pack some of them for you. We're going to get 2 portions out of the one breast. See how I've just tilted it up, and now I'm going to push down on it just to make sure it gets in all the spots. I've turned down the heat a little bit. Remember, if you touch the chicken, got to make sure we wash our hands in between. It's only now I'm starting to have a look at it. Yep, it's nowhere near the color we want, so I'll turn the heat back up and let it cook. So this, we want to at least be starting half an hour in, at least halfway. That way it has time to cook and then rest, and then we can carve it and plate it. Slowly cooking. Have a look at my utensils. I have them set up in water there. You have a nice container to keep them. That other non-stick pan heating up on the back there is for our crispy potatoes, which we will shallow fry. Because you guys don't have a deep fryer. Ooh. Bit of fire, that's just from the water coming out. So don't panic if stuff like that happens. Just let the water burn out and then continue on. It also makes you look cool. Still crisping up. You can see there was a bit of color on there, but we want a bit more. We want it nice and crispy. Slowly frying. Remember, everything we do is about working clean and being set up. We have everything planned and organized. That way it's all nice and easy to do. So we're not running around looking for things. It's all ready to go. We know exactly where we're going to be at the right points. That way, if something does go wrong, we have time to fix it. But because we're practiced, nothing should go wrong. Just making sure there's a nice bit of color. Now flip it on the other side for a little while. Give it a bit of a touch. Because remember, the skin is what crisps up and adds flavor. If it cooks too much on the flesh, it's going to dry out and become dry. I don't know if you had dry chicken before. It's not very nice. So I flipped it over on a nice low heat. I'm just going to baste it a little bit. There's a little bit that wasn't super crispy, but you can see it looks crispy. And what I'm going to do is put this in the oven till it reaches 60 degrees. Here is my steamed potatoes, ready to go. I've taken my thighs out of my braise. So I'm just going to add some corn flour to my potatoes now. So 1 spoon, mixing it around, just making sure they're all covered. So what this is kind of like a crispy potato rosti. We can make it a bit tidier by putting it in a ring mold. But this was just me giving it a practice run, just so I can show you guys a base that we could start on, and then we can add things to. So here's our pan, bit of oil. Same technique as before, shallow frying. See how the potato is all clumpy? What you can do is push it all together. What we could do is put a ring mold in the pan, and then we can push our potatoes in there and get a nice round crispy potato. So it looks even and the same, or we could do a rustic look as well. And what will happen is these will stick together and fry, and they taste like potato chips. They're cooked, so it's not going to be, because we've steamed them, there's no problem there. It's nice and easy, simple. See how I wiped down the bench as I went? We want to make sure we're cleaning as we go. These will fry one side, and then you flip them, fry the other side. So continuing to fry it on a low heat, just letting it bubble. You'll see quickly if it's too high, you can turn it down. Just added a bit more oil because it began to absorb it. See how it's nice and crispy. Again, using a non-stick pan so they shouldn't stick. Just flipping it. So they're like crispy potato hash. We could add flavours inside if we wanted, but I think we keep it nice and plain and simple because once we add herbs and spices, they can begin to burn. So just letting them fry. It's quite a quick job. They become nice and crispy. Making sure that we have our mise en place, a paper towel and a tray. That way all the oil can be absorbed, and then we're ready to plate it up. Making sure we got salt. Remember, deep fried food, especially potato, loves salt. So making sure you season it nicely after it's done. Nice and crispy, just checking it with my finger. And while this is happening, the other person can start breaking down the chicken brace, taking it off the bone like we did in class, making sure there's no sinew or bits of bone inside that braise. Once that's all ready, in a moment you'll see that we'll put it into a pot. So one person can do this and one person can do that. Again, making sure we're working nice and clean when you're breaking down the braise, wearing gloves. Just making sure it's all nice and crisp. The other side, making sure it's a good colour. Again, nice and crispy. We're done. And then this is what I was talking about just before. Taking that skin off, we can discard that. And just breaking it down. So when you guys do this, make sure you wear gloves. Nice and hygienic. We are reheating this, so there is no, getting as much meat off as you possibly can and making sure there's no bones or sinew inside that braise. Just breaking it down nice and fine. That way it's nice and easy to eat. So the idea is you get a bit of the chicken braise on your spoon or your fork, a bit of the sauce, a bit of the puree, and a bit of chicken breast, a crispy potato, and you can eat it all in one go. If it's too big, then it does linger in your mouth for a bit longer. So that braise will only take about 20 minutes to cook. See how it's nice and broken down. I believe I am. What am I doing here? I'm gonna make my puree. So it's all cooked. You can see it's a nice color. Just plugging in my blender. I'm gonna give it a blend just until it's nice and smooth. Should be quite easy to do. Everything's very soft. See how it's a nice beigey colour. The flavour is unbelievable with this puree. Just making sure it's nice and smooth, moving it around. No rushing it. All done, and now we'll need to season it up. Remember, making sure we're working clean. So I took the blender straight to the sink to give it a clean. There's no mucking about. Now we want to make sure we season it, adding enough salt so it's got a good flavour. Giving it a good mix. Then taste it and check it, make sure it tastes delicious. Key point, remember making sure everything's seasoned and tastes good. Now we'll finish off our braise. So we want to add our sauce. So this is the leftover braising juice. I've made a cornflour slurry. I'm just adding that to my boiling braise water liquid, just to thicken it up. So it's a nice consistency. So it's going to be loads of flavour in there, and then it's going to be thickened up. Just giving it a mix. And we can add our carrots in as well. And then what we'll do is, once that's ready to go, cooked out that corn flour, we'll add our sauce into our braise. So it will absorb a lot. So we can pour a fair bit of this braising liquid in and lots of the carrots, giving it a nice mix. Making sure it's all coated. Just remember, that's what's going to flavour it, what's going to give it that taste and keep it nice and moist. Taking my chicken breast out of the oven, letting it rest, ready to carve. All my mise en place is ready. Got my crispy potato. I'm just carving my chicken breast right down the middle, getting my 2 portions. Nice sharp knife, using the knife as much as I can. See how I put the skin side down as I sliced it. Got my plates ready, nice and warm. Remember, hot plate, hot food. Got my ring mold for my braise. Got my puree. Just a nice little smear across the plate. Braise into the ring molds, still nice and warm. Nice and full up. Put our bush tomatoes on top of our ring molds. That's going to add our sour and our sweet to our salty. Then take the molds out and then repeat the process. So if we get 2 ring molds, we can do two plates at once. Remember, there's 2 of you, so someone else, while this is happening, could be sauteing spinach and getting that ready to put on the plate, or sauteing something else to add. Remember, this is just the base, and what I want you guys thinking about is the flavour and the processes, and making sure everything's seasoned. I'm going to add our bush tomatoes to the top. Done. So that also adds a little bit of sauce to our dish as well. Chicken on the plate. A crispy potato. And we're done. Nice hot plate, hot food, nice and clean and tidy. Cleaning as we go. We're not creating too much work. Oh yeah, also the jus. We've got to make sure we put our jus on.